Will Smith is the most caretaking actor that I've worked with. He took care of everybody, not just me, because I played his wife, not just his daughters, because we were in close proximity to him, but background artists. He just would not allow anybody to be treated poorly in his presence. And I cannot tell you how rare that is.
The Academy Awards night ceremony, this major thing that happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock on stage. Now, when you look back on that night, what are your feelings about it? Because it did have such extreme things for you personally, but also extreme things that happened with your co-star on stage.
I know that he wanted to protect his wife, and I stand with him for that. This idea that First Amendment rights should protect everybody, I don't think it should necessarily protect assholes.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Obsessed the Podcast. I'm Kevin Fallon, here to guide you through all the TV shows, movies, and pop culture that we think is unmissable. Our guest today is Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor, who currently stars in the Apple TV series Lucky, in which Anya Taylor-Joy plays a Vegas con artist on the lam. It's a new kind of role for Aunjanue. She's playing a badass action hero, and we talk all about that. We also talk about her other iconic roles. You might know her from The Help, the amazing TV show When They See Us, the phenomenal movie Origin or Nickel Boys, and we talk about her Oscar-nominated turn in King Richard, which she starred as the mother of Serena and Venus Williams. Also, we talk about the fateful Oscar night where her co-star Will Smith did something quite notable on stage that you might remember. We get into it all, and here's my interview with Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor. Hi, how are you?
I'm okay, how you doing?
I'm doing so well. I'm so happy to chat with you about this great show, Lucky.
Thank you. I appreciate your time today.
Of course. I have to say, in this show, you play FBI agent Rand, who is spending a good portion of the series chasing after Anya Taylor-Joy's character, who plays a con artist. And I really enjoy seeing you in this sort of, take no fools, badass, take charge kind of mode as this agent. Was that fun for you to play?
It was very fun. It was very fun. I enjoyed that. It's usually a part that I see men in. So I had a great deal of fun doing it myself.
Is this the first time you've gotten to do this sort of, action kind of shoot 'em up movie? There's car chases I see you in. There's shootouts that I see you do. Is this the first time you've gotten to do something like that in your career?
Yeah, I've done to this degree, absolutely. Yes.
What was that like for you to get to be, a person doing those kinds of stunts and being around the explosions and the gunshot battles? What was that like for you?
The driving scenes were a little scary. A lot scary because I had no control over what I was doing. The car was being driven by this rig that was on top of us. So and then we were kind of going at a clip on the highway, you know what I mean? So so yeah, that was a little scary. And then we did a scene on top of an oil refinery. Yeah, this show is cool, but it was like they wanted us to actually do this shit for real. You know what I mean? Like we were not on any sound stages doing none of this stuff. We were wherever you saw, that's where we were. So yes, it was a little scary. It was a little scary. It was a little scary.
I love the idea of this new era of your career as the badass action star.
Hey, breathe that. Keep saying that. Shoot, yeah, I would love that. I would love it.
One thing I really appreciated about this show and about this character in your performance is that, I think often we can see, an FBI agent or someone in law enforcement on a TV show or a movie, and they're just kind of like, the wisecracking side character. But there's a lot of depth happening here with your character, Agent Rand, and this long relationship that she's had, chasing Lucky and chasing Annette Bening's character. There's a lot more depth to that than what could typically be a sort of stereotypical wisecracking agent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think one of the things, um, I think that's the beauty of doing a series, a limited series, is that as opposed to something that's episodic, that you get to see someone in a little more fullness than you would otherwise see. So we get to live with her a little bit more than we would otherwise. And I think it's also an indication, an indicator that it came from another art form, that it came from a book. So it's texture there because of that. Um, and yeah, I mean, and I think, I had to sort of build this history that was on the page, and then what was off the page as well. And I was able to do that with my, the showrunner Cassie, on working with Mo, and just trying to build a life for her that wasn't in the words. That was the unspoken life of her. And I tried to do that as try to, you know, eke that in as much as I could.
Hmm. And we're going to keep saying, like you asked, about making the action star this next area of your career. But in addition to that, and again, we were just talking about the depth of this character, do you have actors who are sort of maybe role models who have charted a path like that? Actors that you admire who have been able to do the action stuff and do that with depth and in projects that are sort of more profound?
Not enough women are examples of that. And that's why it's good to see a series like this, because you get to see Annette Benning and Anya Taylor-Joy.
Hmm.
So I think Charlize Theron is an example of someone who does that, and with you know uh, I think great success. In we see the fullness of a woman in what she's doing. I think Anya is building that career. Zendaya is doing that. You get to see it a little bit um, in Angela Bassett. You know, you're seeing that with Viola Davis. I think she's really going down that path of being an action star. So there are examples out there. It's just not enough.
Hmm.
And I'm only gonna answer in women.
Well, now we're going to be able to add one more example. It's you.
Oh, okay. We hope. Thank you. Thank you.
You mentioned Anya Taylor-Joy, who's your co-star in this. She's someone who is, first of all, working so much these days that I'm convinced there are multiple versions of her running around this world because I don't see how it's possible.
Her and Anne Hathaway. I'm like, when do you get the time to, like, I don't know. But yeah, I agree.
Yes. Also Nicole Kidman, I would count on that too. There's just clones of her running around.
Exactly.
But I'm curious because you got to work with her pretty closely on this. If you have a sense of what she brings and what she's giving to audiences that makes her so in demand right now and such a popular working actress.
I think that from what I observed in my time with her, we didn't have a lot of scenes. We were more in pursuit of each other than actually, sharing the same space. But what I saw in her that came out of our specific scenes is a refusal to back down. And I love playing opposite that. That there is kind of an unwillingness to wilt in the heat. And I think folks are drawn to that.
Hmm.
I mean, we saw that, in the Queen's Gambit, um, like this sort of, this core that holds despite what's going on around her.
Hmm. You used a great phrase there. not wilting away in the heat, which is beautiful metaphorically. But also, I want to point out that this show takes place in Las Vegas, and there are many scenes in the desert that I mean, it just watching it from my couch, I started sweating because it just looks so hot. Um, are you a Las Vegas desert heat person at all?
I am not. I am not. It's cute to drive through the desert, but I'm a green girl. I need some trees and some humidity, you know. I guess I'm a little Tennessee Williams person. I need, you know what I'm saying? Uh yeah. But anyway, yeah, no, it was hot. And what's interesting though is all of the scenes that we did that were in the desert, we did them it was cold
Oh,
cuz we did it at night. So for them it was when at least my scenes it was cold, and it was like, April, March, so it hadn't gotten like hot yet. But when it did, we were actually back in Los Angeles, and oh my god, I don't know how. I told someone that I was like, in the box of crayons, I went from one color of a crayon to another color of a crayon in a matter of a week. It was so hot out there. Oh my god.
oh my gosh. And what about Las Vegas itself? Are you a person who, between takes sneaks away to the slot machines? Are you a person who enjoys Vegas?
I'm not a Vegas chick. I'm not. I don't want to offend any Vegas people. But no, they don't have to worry about having getting my money at all out there. No. No. Oh, you know what I wanna do though, that I wish I would like to have the experience of doing is it the Sphere?
Mm-hmm. The Sphere. It looks amazing.
Yeah, that looks incredible.
Yeah, I go to Vegas a lot, but I've yet to do the Sphere. I'm waiting for the perfect music act that I be willing to spend all that money on, because I'm gonna have to win the jackpot first in order to afford the tickets.
Yes. Okay. Is it really expensive?
Just everything, all music these days are expensive.
Yes, you're right, it is.
The Hulu original series, Furious, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
There are 3 victims we know of. The suspect is female, white, late 20s.
Female serial killers kill for power, control.
I believe there's a deeper motivation here.
You have no idea who you're dealing with, and you are gonna end up dead.
I've been waiting for you.
Watch the Hulu original series, Furious, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. For bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
So you are a historic guest for us on the Obsessed podcast, because you are one of the first Oscar nominees that we've actually had on the show. And as an awards obsessive from a baby to now, I always just want to know what the experience of that time is like for a person. To be on the campaign trail, to be going to the red carpet, to be doing this gauntlet of interviews and shaking hands and then fancy dresses. What was the experience like for you of that time when you were nominated for King Richard?
Yeah, I've kind of that was the time that I was actually nominated. But then I've done it in then done that path because there was the kind of expectation that I would be nominated, and the film was nominated. I wasn't personally nominated, but the film is nominated, and I've done that, sort of done that a couple of times. But yo, that experience was crazy, and I think it was crazy because it was I had never done anything like that before. Um had been nominated for other things, but that's different. This is that was very, very different. And I kind of was lost a little bit, if that's fair to say, because I just didn't know what I was doing. So I was just did what everybody told me to do. And I lost myself. I lost myself a little bit in it. and people were getting mad at me because I was trying to invite some people to some things, and I couldn't invite everybody to some things, and they got mad because I didn't invite them. It was just, I was stayed in California for those couple of weeks leading up to it, and I remember being in my room or wherever I was, this Airbnb, and just feeling like, oh my God, I felt lonely. I felt absolutely lonely.
Wow.
And yeah, if I'm fortunate to, if that happens again, I know better. You know what I mean? I know better. I have to remind myself that this too will pass. You know what I mean? Like at the time, it's just everything. It's everything, but it's just a moment in your life. And after it's over, you're still gonna be the same. You're gonna still be the same person. So I lost myself a little bit in that. It was an incredible time, but also it was a little lonely.
Wow, that's so interesting to hear because I know also people have talked about what a moment that is for them to be nominated for an Oscar and an award like that. And everyone has a different story about the ways in which it either did or didn't mark a turning point in their career and whether or not it led to more things or less things. What was your experience after that happened?
I want to say this, but when I said I was lonely, because I don't want it to come off like, I'm complaining at all. It was incredible. There's this video I have because I didn't find out I was nominated until the next day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's a video that I took where I was just like listening to music, and I'm just like dancing in my room by myself on the computer. And I saw it later. I didn't see it at the time. I saw it later. And I was like, why am I so happy? I look so happy. And it's like, girl, because you got nominated for an Oscar that the day before. Like that's why you're dancing like that. So there was a great deal of happiness involved in it, and I was happy. But I think like regarding like what happens after that, you definitely get a bump in your you get a bump, and everybody wants you, and get a couple job offers because your name is out in the world more. And that lasts for a little bit, but then it kind of gets back to the grind. But it's interesting because if right a couple years after that, the strike happened kind of soon after that. There were all these things that were happening. But yeah, you definitely get more opportunity. But it's an initial bump, but it kind of doesn't last. You kind of have to get back to the grind.
Yeah. And I imagine that a night like the Academy Awards night ceremony is already a wild and insane experience, sort of surreal, out of body experience for a person to have for the first time. But then I also just can't imagine what that night was like for you when there's also on top of all of that this major thing that happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock on stage that sort of becomes this huge talking point. So I'm curious now, when you look back on that night, what are your feelings about it? Because it did have such extreme things for you personally, but also extreme things that happened with your co-star on stage. That has to be just a wild thing to sort of grapple between the two elements of.
Yeah, Will Smith is it's interesting. I had to give someone some comments about John Bernthal yesterday, and my experience with working with the two of those men, um, they were two of the most honoring and most and kind and caretaking actors that I've worked with. And Will was certainly that. He took care of everybody, not just me because I played his wife, not just his daughters, because we were in close proximity to him, but background artists. He just would not allow anybody to be treated poorly in his presence. He just would not allow it. And I cannot tell you how rare that is in this job, because people who are number one on the call sheet, They see them being number one on the call sheet as a reason for everyone to cater to them. And for them to be assholes and for them to be method and just not give a fuck about anybody but themselves, you know? They see it as permission to do that. They see it as their right to do that. And that's not how he was at all. At all. So I will always have, a great deal of affection and care for him because he acted that way. And not just with me, like I said, with everybody. Um, I know that he wanted to protect his wife. And I I stand by that. I stand with him for that. I think that, this idea that First Amendment rights should protect everybody. I don't think it should necessarily protect assholes. I don't. I really don't.
I love that.
And I don't think, especially if you're causing harm. And I'm from the state of Mississippi, and people have used, First Amendment right protections to defend the Confederate flag. So I know just blanket First Amendment valorization. I don't buy into that. I just don't. I think that, to say the least, we need to look at it needs to be nuanced, and you can't use it as an excuse to harm someone.
I would drop the mic on that if I were you. If you had a mic in your hand right now, it should be hitting the floor.
It just hit.
Let's face it, after a night of drinks, it can be hard to bounce back. A fun night out in the dog days of summer can be desperately needed, but you're often paying for it the next day. That's where Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink comes in. It's a genetically engineered probiotic invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, more than dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel like yourself the next day. Mondays don't move for anyone. Pre-alcohol works overnight so you can have a real weekend and still show up sharp. Go to zbiotics.com/OTP and use offer code OTP for 15% off. That's zbiotics.com/OTP. When I think about my favorite performances that you've done in the past, few years, obviously I think of King Richard, and there's Nickel Boys and When They See Us and God, Origin, which the way that should have won every single Academy Award there is, still boggles my mind that I did not. But when I think of these projects of yours, they are ones that require a person who's promoting them to speak about very charged issues, about very personal opinions about these issues. And I've witnessed you rise to that occasion, and I'm just curious what the experience is like for you to be called upon to do that when you're talking about your films because of the subject matter of them.
With Origin, I felt an adaptation is another life for a book, right? And I remember having a conversation with Ava about this, that Cass, the book itself, did a certain kind of work, but it did a certain kind of work for readers. Everybody's not a reader. So when you have the opportunity to, when Ava had the opportunity to adapt it, make a story out of it, make a narrative out of a book of scholarship, and then she puts it in theaters, Cineplex Odeons, around the world, it has another life. To people who aren't going to read the book, they have the film, and then they can take the film, and we're introducing Isabel Wilkerson's scholarship and about the caste system in America, to a whole other audience. So then the movie comes out, and then it becomes my job to tell people to go see this. And I, in a way, become an ambassador for Miss Wilkerson's scholarship. And that was an honor for me. It was terrifying for me because I'm not smart like that lady. You know what I mean? I did a lot. I had to reread a lot. It took a while for me to get to get it in my bones and to really, really understand it so I could talk about it and with intelligence, and be convincing about what I said. So you're right to question that, because with something like Origin particularly, that's not a small task. It's not like, some other things that I've done and am doing where it's like, oh, what was it like on set? It's a different conversation, and you're right, you have to rise to it.
Yeah. It's not, you're not being asked who's playing pranks on who.
Yes.
You're being asked very serious questions about systemic racism in society.
Exactly. And you guys sound like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But I do appreciate that you have sounded like you know what you're talking about, because I think you do know what you're talking about. Which makes me curious, now it's been a few years since that came out. You're now in this show Lucky. You're still very much involved in the film industry and in Hollywood and arts and culture. And I'm curious, what is your assessment right now of, what we need to be more activated about, what we need to be talking more about, and what changes we need to be making more of that you and your industry actually could be doing, but maybe is ignoring?
Well, I think that I feel that there's a great deal of fear that that guides the choices of folks who get behind who produce films. And I think that's unfortunate. I think that the things that concern us about white narcissism, white supremacy, anti-black racism, all of that stuff that we kind of talk about and give lip service to, all of those things exist in this industry. All of them do. And I think the indication of that is what we continue to see produced on screen. It's just not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's just it's a very small point of view and perspective that we get to see in film and television, and it's not reflective of what is happening in the world. It's just of what exists in the world. It's in that sense, it's dishonest about that. So I certainly I just yeah, I want to see more. It has to happen. And I feel like it's become regressive as opposed to progressing towards something. It's become regressive. So that's why this series, not to just bring it back, but that's why this series matters, because you see somebody like me. You know what I mean? You see three women being the lead of a show, not just one who, really is operating under the gaze of a man. Do you know what I mean? You see three women who are guided by their own motivations doing a job, and, all I can say is more, please.
Yes, I will co-sign that, echo it, put it in neon lights to blare on the streets. I definitely concur with that.
You're right. Good.
I wanna end by asking you something fun, and it is based on my favorite clip of yours that I found online. You are telling a story about one of your acting idols, Denzel Washington, and rehearsing for a role while in a bathroom, and something wild happens to you while doing this. I'm wondering if you could tell me the story because it just delights me so much, and I think says a lot about how much fun you are too.
Oh my God. I don't even know what show. I don't know what show I was doing, but I happened to be in California at the time, and I was staying in one of those apartments where actors stay when they don't live in California. And I was there, and I was in the shower, and I was rehearsing my lines, and I was like, "Oh my God. What would this sound like if Denzel said these lines? What would Denzel do if Denzel said these lines?" And so I started saying the lines like how I thought Denzel Washington would say the lines. And I was just gesticulating and doing everything. And then as I'm doing this, my elbow hits the wall of a shower. The next thing I know, I am airborne. I am airborne. I am airborne. I land on the ground, wrapped around the shower curtain is wrapped around me, and I hit my head on the toilet.
Oh no. Oh no.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I think I probably like lost consciousness for like maybe 2 seconds. I knocked myself out, literally knocked myself out trying to be like Denzel Washington.
Well, that's the power of Denzel.
It's a power, dude. That's the power of Denzel.
All right. Well, I've had just a blast chatting with you. Thank you so much, and congrats on Lucky. It's a great show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aunjanue. That was so much fun to chat with you. I had a blast. And now we want to hear from you. What did you think of our interview, and how much did you laugh at her story about trying to pretend to be Denzel Washington in the shower? I'm still laughing about it right now. Let us know in the comments. We love to hear from you. And as always, subscribe to us on YouTube at The Obsessed channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like me, subscribe to my Substack at obsessed.substack.com. Thank you to our producer, Rachel Passer. And that's all. We'll see you next time.